Married Redditors, what is something your spouse hid from you until after you got married? My ex-wife neglected to mention she was a lesbian until after we were married. Kind of a deal breaker. Well, my grandpa's real name was Upton, and he thought it was really weird, so when he met my grandma he told her his name was James. 3 weeks later, yes, they got married after 3 weeks of knowing each other. The story is actually adorable. The priest asked my grandma if she takes Upton to be her husband. This resulted in my grandma yelling in front of the entire church, "Who the hell is Upton?" And then realizing my grandpa had lied to her because he thought his name was weird, she goes, "Oh Lord, yes I do, to take this stupid man as my husband." They were married 65 years with 3 boys, the oldest of which was named James. I never saw a couple more in love or meant for each other than my grandparents. God rest their souls. The fact that she is actually a good cook. For 10 years I cooked almost every meal because every time she cooked it wasn't very, well, good. Got married, and ever since she has made awesome meals which are absolutely beautiful. I asked her when she learned to cook, and she told me she had always known how to cook, but wanted to make sure I wasn't marrying her to be a housewife that cooks and cleans for her husband. That she was bipolar and anorexic. I knew about them, don't get me wrong, but I had never seen any issues in the 2 years we dated, or the 7 years we were friends. I knew she had had troubles, but it all seemed under control. Looking back, there were signs, but love. A month after we got married I had to enroll her in an eating recovery institute. 9 months. Not cheap. No problem though. I just wanted her to get better. A month after she got home I had to send her to the local hospital where she stayed for 2 weeks while she went through a really tough time and they adjusted her meds. No problem though. I love her. A few months after that she admits to me she never loved me, or anybody for that matter. She just put up a front for public. Well, let's see if we can work on it. I still love her. March of this year, she tells me she is a lesbian and leaves me for another woman. I'm all for it. If this is who she is I can respect that, but fuck me. It sucks, but in all honesty it was a weight off of my shoulders. I didn't realize how much her problems had been affecting me. When the papers were signed I felt like a new man. I felt like then sun shone a bit brighter. I had just started my dream job too, so I was able to throw myself into that. I still do love her, but I'm not in love with her. I never knew what that meant until this happened. If she ever asks me for help I will be there for her, but I will never ever get back together with her. God, that felt good to type. I don't think I have ever said it all out loud before. 3-time felon looking to get married then divorced so she could get paid. Divorced and broke now. That he could juggle. You're with someone for a decade and you think you know him, then all of a sudden he starts juggling the 4 oranges he's holding, and when your jaw drops just says, "Oh, I learned when I was a kid." This whole time we could have been on the road as a circus act, and he waits until now to reveal his talents. He's afraid of heights. We were together 7 years before we tied the knot. Tax reasons and love, of course. 2 years later, and I finally realize why he seems disinterested in skydiving, ziplining, roller coasters, cliffsides, etc. He said he only did it because I wanted him to. I'm not an observant woman. When my grandparents got married, my grandmother was 24 and thought my grandfather was 25. It was during their honeymoon that he confessed that he was only 19. Gran was annoyed, obviously, but I think she was too relieved to be married to stay mad at him. 24 was getting close to being left on the shelf for an Irish Catholic woman in the 60s. That despite the life plans we talked about, once we married he expected me to be the breadwinner, the homemaker, cook and accountant in the family. He needed to stay home and work on his music. Oh, and that 2-bedroom place. No, he didn't want kids. He wanted his own bedroom. Oh, and intimacy? I could just do my business in your room, but sleep in my own bed after. Nope, nope, nope. I used to be married to this really weird bitch. When I had first met her, and she was my girlfriend, she always had this green ribbon tied around her neck, and I always wondered why, but she would never tell me. Even after we had gotten married she had never taken this goddamn ribbon off, and still kept it a secret as to why she wore it. When she finally died I took off the ribbon and her head just fucking fell off. It was weird as shit. My ex-wife, after a 4-year relationship and 2 years marriage, told me she didn't really love me and had just stayed with me because I was a good catch, but now that I had worked hard there was enough money in a divorce that she could have any young guy she wanted. We were 5 years apart in age. Got her the fuck out in 5 days with a separation letter and cash settlement of 1/3 of all assets. Minimal legal fees. My lawyer said she had set me up perfect and just to pay and be free. Took 5 years to pay off the settlement. This is hard to talk about. My beloved husband. He loves country music. I seriously didn't find out until after we were married. Beforehand, we'd listen to rock and heavy metal and oldies. Then, he just dropped that bomb on me. It was a nightmare. At some point, we just agreed to disagree and to never talk about it. He goes to concerts and shows without me, and that is just fine. My ex hid from me several things. The fact that he was sleeping with 16-year-old girls, legal here, getting drunk with minors, was spending the money I was earning for bills, since he wouldn't work, on said alcohol for minors, and that he was an abusive jerk. He's in prison now, but not for any of those things. My ex was an indifferent Episcopalian. Never ever went to church, and laughed at me for all my beliefs. 6 years into marriage I finally have my atheist epiphany, for all my own reasons, and he promptly divorces me, telling everyone it's because he can't be with someone who isn't religious. 2 years later I find out he is married to my ex-best friend and they were fucking for the entire last year of my marriage. I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess my non-beliefs had nothing to do with our problems. That she thought I was weird for wanting sex daily, and that we would slow down to a normal once a month or less after marriage. My ex-husband failed to mention that his first marriage ended because he cheated on her 3 weeks in, that he hadn't been to Afghanistan, that his sister was actually still alive, and so much more. She farts a lot. Seriously, 2.5 years of dating and never heard a squeak. After the wedding, farting constantly. I'm really surprised she didn't let one rip at the altar after I said, I do. There is a classic Jewish joke. It starts off with a rabbi telling a man that, if he wants to be guaranteed to get into heaven, he just has to marry a bad wife and treat her nice. So he finds a woman that is awful in every way. Before they get married, she calls him names, treats him horribly, and she isn't such a catch herself. He is willing to take the hit though to get into heaven. They end up getting married. Then, out of nowhere, his wife starts treating him great. She makes him nice food all the time, respects him, helps out. He doesn't get it. Finally, after a month of this, he goes up to his wife and asked what happened, why she started treating him so well. She answered, "What, you think I'm going to let you get into heaven that easily?" Well, thankfully I didn't marry her, but we were engaged, and 2 months before getting married she unleashed her violent tendencies. She would hit me if I ever argued with her, and when I told her to stop she would hit harder. I also found out that she had a bipolar issue, thus her abusing me, and would also cut herself, and when I tried to break off the marriage because of this, she threatened to kill herself. I called the cops when she pulled a knife out and threatened to hurt me and herself. She told them that I had been hurting her, and when I told them what was really happening they laughed and took me to jail. I eventually had enough of her shit and didn't care what happened and got the fuck out of there. Best decision of my life. Found out my wife had picked up smoking cigarettes. I told her I would break up with her if she started. My grandmother died of emphysema a year before we met, and I found a pack on our honeymoon. Needless to say I was pissed. She is trying to switch to Essex now after 3 years. Trying to be supportive. Oh my god. My husband is that his favorite radio show was Car Talk, and that we would have to listen to it every Saturday morning. Every Saturday until I left for college. My dad made me listen to that show. When I graduated, I thought, at last, I'll never have to listen to that on a Saturday morning again. I was wrong. I'll have to listen to it every time my husband catches a rerun. Until they stop playing them, or until the end of time. Fuck. After reading through this thread, I plan on saving up enough money for 2 private eyes when I'm ready to marry. One for checking up on my fiance, and one so that my fiance can check up on me. That she can juggle. I mean, damn. She can juggle up to 5 things at once. Told me she learned it in theater arts in high school, and she thinks it's no big deal. I found out when I jokingly tossed a lemon to her in the kitchen, and then followed with another right away. She just grabbed both and started to juggle. I tossed 2 more, and she kept right on going. I didn't find out until our divorce that my ex-husband had credit card debt and no retirement savings. His company had a good 401k match, and he had told me that he was contributing. Turns out he had never even set up his 401k and was not putting any money toward retirement savings, in addition to accumulating credit card debt. Thankfully all the debt was in his name, and the divorce filing had him paying all of his debt and me keeping all of my retirement savings. Bullet dodge there. He likes snacking in bed. Discovered this on the honeymoon, when I woke up at 2 in the morning to him eating an entire can of Pringles, spraying crumbs everywhere, in the covers, rather than at the table in our room. Still trying to break him of that habit with little success. I sometimes wake up with popcorn kernels in my hair. He actually was living under a false identity. He stole the identity of his military superior when both of them were attacked in Korea. That if my family didn't stay in line with how he acted, he'd try to cut me off from them. Oh, and he had some really bad anger issues. When he became abusive, he hit me and kicked me out of the house. Now, my family isn't perfect. We fight, normal family issues. We are not drug dealers or rapists, but we are family. We love each other. So naturally, when I came home in the middle of the night, crying, 3 hours away, we lived in another city, they had something to say about it. Now, I was married. I tried to make it work. So I went back. Naturally, my family wasn't excited about that. But I went back anyway. Then it got worse. So then he told me that I couldn't talk to them anymore. Actually, his exact words were, cut your family out of your life, or leave. So I left. It all worked out for the best. My mom was diagnosed with cancer, and I'm helping take care of her. I see my niece and nephew a lot. I have a good job. My life is relatively simple, and I'm happy. The best revenge is to live well. That after 18 years she'd weigh close to 3x my weight. I love her, but wish that didn't happen. I brought undiscovered alcoholism to the table. Never drank before getting married. I'm okay now. The moral of the story, there are many reasons not to get married young. One of which is that your personality isn't fully developed. First wife was in deep denial about her own sexuality, but married me and had 2 children to prove to her mother that she was a good daughter. Completely fucked up, I know. The charade was over by year 7, and we had 2 healthy children. Second wife was deeply in debt up to her eyeballs and hid it from me. I found out about it when I answered a call from a debt collector the day before we got married. My father has horrible gas. Like, everyone has sulfur, spoiled milk, and a rotten watermelon left in a car in Florida in July smell to it. My stepmother had no idea about it until 3 weeks after they were married, since she had gotten rid of her cat for him, and he had nothing else to blame the smell on anymore. She somehow hid the fact she was ticklish on her sides. Then one fateful day, my wife is also blonde, I poked her side to annoy her, and she was like, "Don't I'm so ticklish there." Then I said, "You are? Since when?" The look of dread on her face, realizing how she had hid it from me for so long and now it was known, was like a movie scene. As any good husband, I proceeded to tease her for a while, but not too badly. Not really hiding, but my wife never once asked me to put the toilet seat down until the day we moved into our apartment. We had lived together previous to being married. My husband died 10 years ago, but we were married for 27 years. After about year 10th of marriage, he told me that his mom had shot his dad after catching him cheating, not killing him, but ending a long and successful career in the military. After he finally told me this, a lot of things that had never made sense to me before finally did. I didn't know that my wife loved rap music, gangster rap, and can rap. Introverted middle-class white girl loves and can perform D12, Filth and All, and Eminem stuff, taking particular relish in the more misogynistic and violent songs. Blew my mind. Had no fucking clue. Not my personal story, but my mother started dating this nice little old man. After a year of dating he came clean that he had been in prison for 15 years for the murder of his first wife. My mom continued to date him. She didn't tell me until they broke up, and all I could think was, I used to go over to his house and he would make me dinner, and he made really good chili. I would have never even expected that. You never know what people are hiding. My now late husband came to me directly from his mother's home and into mine. I cooked, cleaned, and did everything that a good old-fashioned wife does for her husband, all the while he claims that he cannot do these things. After living together for 4 years, 2 years into our marriage I became so ill that I was laid up for weeks. I feared that we would both starve and be living in filth and poverty from eating out, until he surprised me with a better than my own home-cooked meal. It was delicious. Even the house was cleaner than ever. I think it's hilarious that he hid his domestic talents from me for so long and was even better than me. I was duped for 4 years. That she pulled the goalie, and thus we got pregnant on our honeymoon or the week after. Honorable mention. 2 weeks before we married, I uncovered that she needed her teeth replaced because she had the worst bulimia the dentist had ever seen. At the same time, I found out that she had another credit card that I did not know about. In my first month of marriage, I wrote a check for about $30,000 to credit